After Michael Jackson died, teams of people spent months going through his belongings. They found costumes, they found awards, they found 10,000 books stacked across every room of Neverland, but buried inside a warehouse in Los Angeles, folded, worn, and written in ballpoint pen. They found something that stopped everyone cold: his own words, written in his own hand, pages that were never meant to be read by anyone. And what those pages reveal about the man behind the moonwalk will change the way you see him forever. Before the glove, before the moonwalk, before Thriller sold more copies than any album in the history of recorded music, there was a small house on Jackson Street in Gary, Indiana. And inside that house, a steel worker named Joseph Jackson had 5 sons and one impossible dream. Michael was the youngest. He was 5 years old when his father put a microphone in his hand. He could barely reach the stand. But from the moment he opened his mouth, everyone in the room knew this boy was not ordinary. This boy was something the world had never produced before. By the time he was 11, the Jackson 5 had 4 #1 hits in a row. By the time he was a teenager, he was performing in front of millions. And by the time he was 20, he was already exhausted, not physically, emotionally, because the boy who sang "I Want You Back" at age 11 had never been allowed to want anything back for himself. No childhood, no privacy, no normal friendships, no slow mornings, no playing in the street with other kids, just rehearsals, stages, cameras, and a father whose discipline left scars that never fully healed. And so, at 21 years old, while the rest of the world saw a superstar rising, Michael Jackson sat down alone, picked up a pen, and wrote a letter to himself. In 2013, CBS News and 60 Minutes discovered a folded, worn piece of paper inside a private warehouse where Michael's personal belongings were stored. It was written in 1979 on the back of a tour itinerary in Michael's own handwriting. It was not a song, it was not a lyric sheet, it was a manifesto, a mission statement from a 21-year-old boy who had already been famous for more than a decade and was desperate to become something more. He wrote that he wanted a completely new identity. He wrote that he wanted to be called MJ, no more Michael Jackson. He wanted a whole new character, a whole new look. He wanted the world to forget the kid who sang ABC and see someone entirely different, an incredible actor, singer, and dancer who would shock the world. And then, in the margin, almost like a whisper to himself, he wrote one more line. He promised to study the entire history of entertainment, to learn from every great who came before him, and to take it steps further than where the greats left off. He was 21 years old, and he executed that plan almost to the letter. The 60 Minutes producer who found it said he had seen many young artists dream about fame, but he had never seen someone write it down at that age and actually make every single word come true. But fame did not bring peace. It brought isolation, and the writings that followed the manifesto tell a very different story. Among Michael's belongings, a 15-page self-help journal was found, handwritten in black ink, inside an Anthony Robbins workbook, titled "Unleash the Power Within." The pages contained Michael's most private thoughts about his life and his desperate attempts to improve himself from the inside out. On a separate piece of yellow-lined paper, also written in his hand, he wrote about wanting to reprogram his mind with what he called the deep truths of inner mental powers. He was searching, reaching, trying to build internally what the world kept tearing down externally. Handwriting experts who later analyzed his notes described what they saw as devastating. The writing started large and confident, then gradually shrank, line by line, until his own signature was the smallest thing on the page. They said it indicated a man whose energy was draining, whose sense of self was diminishing, and whose boundaries had collapsed entirely. He sometimes capitalized letters correctly. Other times, he did not. Experts said this was not ignorance. It was a sign of someone who had become so isolated from normal society that conventional rules no longer felt relevant to him. The man who danced in front of 100,000 people could barely hold himself together on paper. Michael Jackson reportedly owned 10,000 books in his lifetime. They were stacked across every room of Neverland, a sprawling 12,000 square foot estate with 16 bedrooms, 29 bathrooms, and 100 staff members at any given time. But for all its size, Neverland was not built for parties. It was built for a man who never had a childhood, trying to create one for himself at 40. The amusement park rides, the animals, the candy shop, none of it was for show. It was medicine for a wound that never closed. He read constantly. He studied art, philosophy, history, and self-improvement. He surrounded himself with books, the way other people surround themselves with friends. Because books do not betray you, do not sell stories about you, and do not leave when the cameras turn off. On June 24, 2009, Michael Jackson arrived at the Staples Center in Los Angeles for rehearsal. He was preparing for This Is It, a series of 50 comeback concerts at London's O2 Arena. It was supposed to be his return, his redemption, his proof that the king of pop was still alive. He rehearsed that evening, he went home, and somewhere in the early hours of June 25th, his personal physician, Conrad Murray, administered propofol, a surgical anesthetic, to help him sleep. Michael never woke up. He was pronounced dead at 2:26 in the afternoon. He was 50 years old when his will was opened. It revealed something that silenced every critic. Michael Jackson had directed 20% of his entire fortune to unspecified charities. He named his mother, Catherine, as guardian of his 3 children. And if Catherine could not serve, he chose Diana Ross, not a business partner, not a lawyer, a woman who had been kind to him when he was a child. Even in death, Michael Jackson was still trying to protect the people he loved, and still trying to give to a world that never stopped taking from him. He was born in a small house in Gary, Indiana. He died in a rented mansion in Los Angeles, and somewhere between those 2 rooms, folded inside a warehouse, written in ballpoint pen, a boy left behind the only honest words he ever wrote. Words that were never meant for the world, but maybe the world needed to hear them anyway. If this story moved you, hit subscribe, because next time we are telling you what Michael Jackson's children found the day they read their father's final letter, and that story will break you.